On this edition of Native Report, we meet artist and Ojibwe craftswoman Marcie McIntire as she teaches an Ojibwe moccasin making course. We visit Oshki Ogimaaag Charter School to learn about their language program. And we learn about Lex Porter, an Ojibwe Code Talker from World War II. We also learn what we can do to lead healthier lives and hear from our elders on this edition of Native Report.
Production of Native Report is made possible by grants from the Shakopee-Mdewakanton Sioux community, the Blandin Foundation, and the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation.
Welcome to Native Report. I'm Ernie Stevens. Beadwork and other traditional crafts are still widely practiced on the Grand Portage Reservation in northeastern Minnesota. Noted beadwork artist and craftswoman Marcie McIntire learned the skill of moccasin making and beadwork embroidery from her mother and grandparents, and in turn teaches others those very same skills. Join us now as we attend her class at the North House Folk School.
Along the shores of Lake Superior in Grand Marais, Minnesota, is the North House Folk School, where traditional northern crafts are taught. Today, Marcie McIntire is providing instruction on how to make a pair of bead-embroidered moccasins.
I started doing beadwork at the age of 10 years old, and I've been making moccasins for about 20 years now, so we're having a moccasin class here today. It's about 10 years since I started working at North House Folk School as a contractor. I teach several classes a year, and this is the only institution that has invited me to teach. And I wish I could teach more people. I used to teach what they call the scout boot. It's kind of we would call it a work moccasin, where the cuff wraps around the ankle, and it's maybe about 3 or 4 inches up the ankle, and you tie the cuff around your ankle with a long ties, like shoelaces, and that way the sticks and stones and that sort of thing won't get into your shoe when you're walking or when you're working outside. So that was a more practical type. This style I'm making is more of a fancy dress type, which you would wear with a traditional outfit at powwows.
For the past 10 years, Marcie has taught up to 6 courses per year, and the number of students has varied between 2 and 10 per class. She has taught how to make beaded doilies, deerskin mittens with Anishinaabe-style beadwork, and beaded baby moccasins. Marcie is known and highly regarded for her beadwork.
I started out with the loom work, loom woven beadwork. We make our own looms and we do our own designs. Many times those are geometric designs, and the geometric designs are the oldest designs, but it's all personalized. It's whatever the artist intends. So that's what we're doing here. Everybody uses their own designs. I give them a few hints of how to do it, how I do it. So I started with the bead embroidery, which we're doing here, making medallions and other objects. My mother helped me with advising me with different techniques and different styles, but basically it's a type of art you learn by watching. One of the things that I wanted to create was a bandolier bag, and so I had to study those things in museums. But then other things were at hand, where I would go to powwows and see the beadwork there, and I would get inspiration from that. Design-wise, what inspires me is the fact that we're celebrating the plant life. And we do that because the plant life was responsible for many things in our way of life a long time ago. The birch tree provided the transportation, the housing, the cooking, and cooking utensils and storage utensils. There was also the food that the plant life provided. Many of these plants grow in the spring that we use for soups. You can dry them too. There's herbs, and then there's also medicine. So we're celebrating the plant life. And so it's really significant to me because a lot of people, especially historians, have a misconception about our culture. They think of us as having run around with a breechcloth around the waist in case of a male, and doing big game hunting, whereas actually it was the plant life that fueled our existence. And in the spring and summer, I go out into the woods. I go up on the Grand Portage Trail, or actually I just look out the window on my deck, and I draw the floral patterns that I see, the foliate patterns, and I sketch them, and then when I want to make a design, I go through my file of sketches and decide what I want to do. And so I look at the designs I've done previously, and I just sit down with a pencil and piece of paper and start drawing until I find something that I like, depending on the object I'm making.
Marcie has taught in her home village of Grand Portage, but she has not done that in a number of years, and that has caused her some concern about the future.
We come from this tradition, and it's just the way it's done. I taught at the grade school and then also at the National Park Service, but it has been many years now. Those children are now in their 30s. When I was in my 20s, most people in Grand Portage had some kind of handwork or something they made that they excelled at. Some people made drums, or they made knives, or braided rugs, birch bark baskets, beadwork, jewelry, but you don't see that anymore. People aren't making things that much, and I hope we'll get this back. I would like them to learn about their cultural history, because we come from a great heritage, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. The society in the United States is permeated with all kinds of negative images of our people, and in fact, our people have lived a very positive life. One of the reasons for doing this kind of work was to eliminate, put an end to the cultural genocide our people face. I wish I could teach more people.
The liver is an amazing organ and is located under the rib cage in the right side of the abdomen. We do not have to think about what the liver does, and it processes and metabolizes what we take into our bodies. Everything we eat or drink is processed either by the liver or the kidneys. This includes processing medicines, and the liver also makes our blood clotting factors. One of the things that can happen to our livers is something called fatty liver disease, and just like it sounds, this means fat starts to build up in the liver. In the early stages, this often has no symptoms, but it can sometimes include something called NASH, or non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. Steato means fat, and hepatitis means inflammation of the liver. NASH is a worse form of fatty liver disease, and it means there's inflammation of the liver. When the liver tries to repair itself from NASH, it causes fibrosis, or scarring. The damage done at this point is indistinguishable from damage done by alcohol and can lead to cirrhosis. There is also an increased risk of liver cancer in people with NASH. Liver failure can happen with cirrhosis, and the symptoms are many, including fatigue, weakness, itching, loss of appetite, weight loss, fluid buildup in the abdomen, edema or swelling of the feet, ankles, or legs. Confusion, easy bruising and bleeding, yellowing of the skin, or jaundice, and spider angiomas, which are spider-like blood vessels on the skin. Liver failure can cause internal bleeding, and this is often fatal. The list of severe complications due to liver disease is too long to list because the liver is involved in pretty much everything that happens in our bodies. No organ or system works alone, and all of them are intertwined and connected and dependent on each other. Everything works best when everything is working together, just like us. There are no medicines to treat this, and weight loss is always advised. The best way to avoid fatty liver disease and NASH is to maintain a healthy weight, eat a diet high in fruits, vegetables, healthy fats, and good grains, including wild rice. Exercise is always good, and avoiding anything that can cause liver damage is important. That list definitely includes alcohol. Extra fat in the liver has many causes, including obesity, diabetes, hyperlipidemia, which is high triglycerides and high cholesterol, and high blood pressure. Another risk factor for getting fatty liver disease and NASH is something called metabolic syndrome. This is a cluster of medical conditions and traits linked to being overweight and obese. Metabolic syndrome is defined as having any three of the following: large waist size, high triglycerides in the blood, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and higher than normal blood glucose levels. Fatty liver disease is not rare, and I've seen many patients with this, and have seen patients with NASH. I've seen cirrhosis and death, and have seen some taken too young. Make sure you have regular checkups. A little bit of work up front can prevent lots of heartache later. Remember to call an elder. They've been waiting for your call. I'm Dr. Arnie Vainio, and this is Health Matters.
Oshki Ogimaaag Charter School on the Grand Portage Reservation in northeastern Minnesota opened its doors as a K-6 Minnesota public charter school in September 2009. As a part of the curriculum, the Ojibwe language is incorporated as much as possible throughout the school day, but an even greater effort is being made to develop a new generation of speakers.
Ishkipuchikan. Ishkipuchikan. Wakakot. Wakakot.
It is Thursday morning at Oshki Ogimaaag Charter School, and a small group of students are in Dan Viren's language classroom talking through an Ojibwe language exercise.
I think learning second languages in general is important because how we perceive our world is through our own experiences. And, when we have similar experiences with other people, we kind of have the tendency to have the same view of our world, but nobody's is exact. Language is the vehicle by which we think about, categorize, respond to our world, and things do not translate exactly between languages. So, for example, if somebody said, "Hey, where's your sister?" or something, or "What's she doing?" I might say in English, "Hey, she's riding a bike." And so we all, us English speakers, have a similar image would pop into all of our minds about what that is. But in Ojibwe, we might say, "Tibiwe bishkige." And that is a little different view because it describes the tib as like rolling. Webish is because of an action like kicking or shoving. And so you can get an image of pushing on pedals or something, causing it to roll. And so it's a little different view of the world. And so I think languages enrich our lives because they expand our experience and our way of viewing the world. But I think more importantly than that, I think especially for Native people, learning a native language provides them with a stronger identity to, their culture and their heritage.
The overall student body at Oshki Ogimaaag is small with only 20 students, but this enables staff to focus on teaching and fulfilling the school's mission.
Oshki Ogimaaag Community School mission is to create a a grade K through 6 learning environment of excellence based on traditional teachings. Rooted in the Anishinaabe culture and language within a technological setting, we will prepare students through hands-on, community-based projects to become lifelong learners that reach their personal and academic potential, preserve the Anishinaabe language and culture, and contribute to the wellness of future generations. We work very hard to incorporate the culture and the language so that those are not forgotten and so we don't lose them. And all of the staff here work very hard towards that. Last fall we took them wild ricing and we showed them the complete steps to gathering wild rice and processing it and then cooking it and eating it at the end. This spring now we're going to go take the kids to Sugarbush and do a week-long camp at Sugarbush and show them the whole process of that. We also do smaller things. You know, we work a lot with the 7 teachings and show them beading, and we're going to get some drumming going. Hopefully some of the boys are making their own sticks currently, so it's quite a range of activities.
Mr. Dan, as the students call him, may not be native, but he grew up in Grand Portage and native communities in Canada and speaks the Ojibwe language very well. It is a base that can be built upon.
I think I really had a good fortune of being in a place at a time where my peers were speaking as much Ojibwe as they were English. And so, you know, I got to learn it in a live culture where it was a part of our everyday experience. Our experience, kids, you know, goofing around and that. And so I think that was a real benefit to me when I did then go to college. And, you know, this is my second year, so I don't know how good of a grasp I have of, you know, where we should be. But I have a real idea about teaching language that I'm shooting for. Like if you have a graph and maybe the y-axis is language acquisition and the x is over time, I really think there's a big band in there where it's just fuzzy and people learn language but they never get out of that fuzzy stage. I think the real secret to language acquisition is getting above that fuzzy phase. And of course, the best way to do that is immerse yourself in the language and in the culture. But we unfortunately don't have that, you know. We don't have that here in Grand Portage. So in a setting like this, I think repetition is huge. And building it in a real strategic approach, I'm hoping will get them through the fuzzy part, in the absence of being able to be immersed in the language. What we have to do is teach a language that the kids experience in their daily life, in their own personal culture, not what we think their culture should be, but what they do. That's how I learned in Fort Hope. You know, I hope to build something that works, you know, in an environment like this, where, you know, somebody who's a better speaker and knows the culture, is of the culture, can come in and maybe use what I've created to you know, have that more authentic experience for the children and stuff. So I'm hoping to build a good program here.
My mother was born in Grand Marais, and then they were hauled up to Grand Portage, and that's why she was in Grand Portage. And then my dad, he came from Sweden, and how he met my mother is still unbelievable to me, because when he came across, he landed in New York, and then he got far as 2 harbors, and then he came up to Grand Portage. He was a commercial fisherman, and that's what he did the rest of his life after he met my mom, and they had 5 children. But we didn't have electricity, and we didn't have running water. We had to go down to Lake Superior and haul our water. And that wasn't too bad because we had trails down there, you know. And when mother needed to wash clothes, we could take her boiler down there and push it up, and then she put it on the stove to warm up. And when I got older, I'd say, "I'll get you water." And then I'd dump it so I could make ice on the hill, and then we could go sliding. And then we finally got lights and running water in the village, which was very nice too. It took that long.
Lex Porter of the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa, told his children that he was a radio operator during World War II. Little did they know that he was an Ojibwe Code Talker. Lex received his award posthumously in a 2013 ceremony in Washington, D.C.
My father was traditional, my mother was a Catholic. Either one of my parents, they ever drank alcohol or did anything like that. We were always on the powwow trail. You know, that was our life. We were powwow trail, sugar bush. We probably lived, you know, pretty close to the way the Creator meant us to live.
Joe's father is Lex Porter, a member of the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa. He lived much of his adult life on the Grand Portage Reservation in northeastern Minnesota. In World War II, he served as a radio man. But years after he passed on, a phone call from Fond du Lac took the family by surprise with news that Lex was to be honored for being a code talker.
And I said, "My brother Joe just can't be contacted at the moment. But you tell me what you want him to know, and I can get a phone number from you and he'll call you back." So we did that. And that's when I found out, and my goodness, that was just a few years ago. And I was as shocked as could be. I wasn't sure what he really was telling me, and it didn't make sense. What was my dad being honored for? How could I not know something about him, not knowing that that's how it had to be during the war? He couldn't let us know, and that even carried on afterward.
She came over to the house, and my sister said, "Oh, Joe," you know. She had to go and contact Jeff Savage, because he's I believe he's the tribal preservation coordinator down in Fondue. So I went over to her office. She brought her over to her office, and I called him, and we said, "I have some information about your dad. Your presence is requested in Washington, D.C., because your dad was a code talker." I knew my father as a radio man, because that's all what he said he was a radio man, you know. Took it at that.
Joe, Vivian, and several of Lex's grandchildren attended the ceremony held at the U.S. Capitol, where Native American code talkers were presented with congressional gold medals. Their efforts helped win the war.
I couldn't believe it. The immense pride, sorrow, pain, you know, and happiness that, you know, that they are getting their just due. You know, we're not just old Indians anymore. You know, it's just, you know, and there's so many people there that had that commonality of what our people have done for our country.
We got to sit in the very front row, and we were sitting by one of the last code talkers from the Navajo Nation. And this man in his 90s was sitting there in his wheelchair with his family members, and then I realized who my dad was.
Lex was also recognized and honored at the Fond du Lac Veterans Powwow in 2015.
They gave us the silver medal. The nation he was from, which is Fond du Lac, was given the gold, and we received brass ones, replicas of the Medal of Honor. And to see that displayed there, and to have them call us to the front and then gift us with Pendleton blankets was quite an honor.
At the powwow, they presented them, and they presented me with this. That's the, I don't know, Congressional Silver Medal of Honor. And around the outside, you can see the floral design. Well, that's what his beadwork on his dancing regalia was. I wish that my brothers could have been there also, but it was really overwhelming. It still is to this day.
For more information about Native Report or the stories we've covered, look for us on the web at nativereport.org, on Facebook, and on YouTube. Thank you for spending this time with your friends and neighbors in Indian Country. I'm Ernie Stevens. Join us next time for another Native Report.
Rita Aspinwall is an enrolled member of the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa, and is an ICWA social worker with Fond du Lac Social Services. Ernie Stevens is a member of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin and is a film and television producer. Production of Native Report is made possible by grants from the Shakopee-Mdewakanton Sioux community, the Blandin Foundation, and the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation. Partial funding for this episode of Native Report is provided by the citizens of Minnesota through the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.